me during the course of our time together. So this is your chance to ask me whatever you want to know about the Elm Creek Quilt series, or about my writing, or about my historical novels, or whatever comes to mind. I am
So
at your
tell us a little
disposal.
bit about the new book.
Well, the new book.
There's big things happening at the Quilting Retreat.
There are big things happening. What happened in this book follows almost exactly where the previous novel, The World's Fair Quilt, left off, although there actually is some overlap between the two books. In The World's Fair Quilt, sorry if you haven't read it yet, I'm going to be giving you some spoilers. Sylvia and the Elm Creek Quilters are facing some financial issues, and that threaten the continuation of Elm Creek Quilt Camp, because what a surprise! It is a rather expensive proposition to run the country's most prestigious quilt camp from a 19th century mansion in the middle of central Pennsylvania, out in the middle of nowhere. Who knew that would be so tough? The wiring maybe isn't up to all of those high-end sewing machines and everything else. So they've run into some expenses. And in the World's Fair Quilt, Sylvia draws upon memories of a similar time in her life when her family was living in Elm Creek Manor during the Great Depression, and when she and her sister collaborated on a quilt to enter into the Sears the national quilt contest that they held to celebrate the Chicago World's Fair. And while Sylvia is dealing with her contemporary issues and drawing inspiration from the past, she and her Sarah and Matt and Summer and all of the rest are coming up with ideas for new revenue streams so that they can fix the roof and they can keep everything going. Well, near the end of the book, a windfall comes along in the form of a phone call from the celebrated actress Julia Merchaud, who has won numerous Emmys and a Golden Globe. And she's also not only a famous celebrated actress, she is a former and current quilt camper. She and the friends that she met on her first stay at Elm Creek Quilt Camp, they call themselves the cross-country quilters because they're scattered all across the country. And they were introduced to the series in the third novel. Well, Julia has been a camper every year since that first trip, and she calls Sylvia with a proposition. She is the star and occasional director and producer of the hit historical drama A Patchwork Life, which has won Julia another Emmy and has launched the careers of some of her younger stars. And as the name of the series might suggest, there's quite a lot of quilting that the characters do in this historical drama set on the Kansas frontier. So Julia contacts Sylvia and says that she would like to arrange a private, exclusive week of quilt camp for several members of the cast and crew of her TV show, because some of them need to brush up on their quilting skills before they begin shooting season number 7 in a few months. And others are new members to the cast, and they need to learn how to quilt from the very beginning. So since shooting begins in January, Julia and her friends cannot wait until the regular camp season. So she proposes that Sylvia open up the manor for a special autumn week of quilt camp. Usually Elm Creek Manor is closed for the season, but Julia proposes opening it up and giving them the special intensive quilters boot camp lessons that they need so that they can quilt perfectly and in character when the new season of the drama begins shooting. So the price that, Sylvia has some misgivings. She doesn't want to accept charity, and she's concerned that it might be charity, but Julia says, don't worry. if you've seen how some of my colleagues quilt, you know that you and your fellow teachers are going to be earning every penny helping them learn to quilt. So Julia mentions a fee that just has Sylvia speechless with relief and gratitude, because it will pay for the new roof on the manor, it will pay off some other debts, and it really is an answer to their prayers. And she also thinks it's going to be a lot of fun. So of course Sylvia agrees, and that is the story that Sylvia knows. That's from Sylvia's perspective. But in the Patchwork Players, we get Julia's perspective, and we learn that there is more going on than just these quilting lessons. Julia has been just absolutely thrilled with the success of her series. She loves the series, the creative work, and she doesn't object to the awards. Those are also very nice. But something that is especially important to her are the relationships that she's formed with the members of the cast and crew. They really are her found family, and she just loves every day that she's on the set. She enjoys every day that she's planning for a new script, or even doing some, extra voice work. She loves every part of it, and she would be happy if this series could continue forever, or at least until she's ready to retire. She wants it there as long as she wants it there. Unfortunately, and this is in the beginning of the book, so I'm not giving away too much in the way of spoilers. When Julia is hosting a premiere party at her home in the Malibu Hills with a view of the Pacific Ocean in her screening room in her house, and it's for the premiere of the 6th season. And much to Julia's surprise and dismay, she learns that several essential members of the cast and crew are going to be calling it quits. They are not sticking around for season 7. They have found other creative challenges. They found other promising opportunities. One of the young men who plays her grandson has decided he's going to take a break from acting and go to college, because he missed out on the usual school experience being a child actor all those years. So Julia is so disappointed and alarmed, and she decides that there must be something she can do. And then she concocts a brilliant scheme. She thinks back to that first week that she experienced at quilt camp, where she let her guard down and she let people in, and she admitted to her weaknesses, and she attempted to learn new things. And most of all, she made friends with the cross-country quilters, and they have become her lifelong, her friends, her very dearest friends. And they've stayed in touch. They work on quilt projects while they're separated, and they reunite every year at quilt camp to renew their friendship and just have a wonderful time together. And Julia thinks that if she could get members of her cast and crew to spend a week at Elm Creek Manor with her, to sure brush up on their skills, but really for a bonding experience, she is confident that they will remember how much they mean to one another, how their experience as a cast and a crew and a team and a family is really something very special that you don't find on every movie set or every TV studio. And so she thinks if we can just get everybody there and we have a wonderful time, they will change their minds. They will tear up those other contracts. They will banish those other plans, and they will all sign on for at least a few more seasons of A Patchwork Life. So that's Julia's brilliant plan, and it starts off pretty well. But if it were truly a brilliant plan and flawless, then it would be a very short and a very dull novel. So it's not long into that first week of quilt camp when things start to go badly awry. badly awry or hilariously awry, whether you are Julia or someone reading about Julia. So Julia makes a very bad mistake. She's careless with someone else's feelings. She puts her own desires ahead of what is best for her friends, and it backfires spectacularly. So Julia has to figure out, how does she make it right? How does she fix this? And will any apology be enough to bring this chosen family that she has fractured, to bring them all back together? But I am not going to tell you what Julia does and how she tries to fix it and whether she succeeds or fails, because I want you to pick up your book from Swamp Fox Bookstore and find out for yourself by reading the story. So that's what The Patchwork Players is all about. That's the backstory for that book. Oh, I can't hear you. I can't hear Terry. Are you on mute?
I muted myself because I was having issues with the sound over on my end, and I realized it was probably feeding back at you.
Oh.
And it was just on my end. As far as we were perfectly clear. So I believe we got all our issues also resolved on YouTube. So hopefully people can catch us over there as well.
Good.
So thank you to everybody that alerted me that there was an issue there. So like I said, I believe from what I can tell, everything is set up and going over there. So exciting. So I was poking around your website earlier, and we when we met a year ago in March, you were working on a very exciting project.
That's right. Well, that was so much fun. And I'm so grateful to you, Terry, for driving all the way from Iowa to Western Wisconsin to provide books. It was a wonderful quilt exhibit. Oh gosh, now Hogarth? No.
Lancaster.
Lancaster. We were in Lancaster, but it was this. Oh, I'm so sorry. My mind is going blank. I wasn't prepared for this question. It was at a historic, if anybody remembers, put it in the chat so that we can say it out loud. But my mind is going blank, and I can picture Linda, and I can picture all the lovely people there. It was this wonderful quilt exhibit at the Historical Society there. And we met at a theater down the street, and we had a lovely talk. But this quilt exhibit was made up of, it was very much like the quilt exhibit in the Museum of Lost Quilts, when it was all about all these amazing quilts that were from the local area, and they had some kind of historical connection, a founding resident or something made for a special occasion. And it was just amazing. And after my talk, I went over with my husband, and we walked through and looked at all these wonderful quilts, and it was just really such a lovely experience. And Terry came and brought all these books and did a little pop-up bookshop right there in the lobby. And that was a lot of fun. So I talked a bit about the Patchwork Players that day, but I also talked about another book that I'm going to have out in 2026. And that is another pattern book. And it's called Elm Creek Quilts Christmas. It's coming out June 30th. Apparently, June is the perfect time in the quilt shop world to release quilt fabrics that are Christmas quilt fabrics, Christmas quilt patterns and books, because it gives you just enough time to finish a few projects before you give them to someone on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. So that is coming out from C&T Publishing, like my other 7 pattern books. And I had a lot of help with this one because I had a very short timeline to pull everything together, just like Sylvia and Claudia did in the World's Fair quilt when they had to make their entry for the World's Fair competition. So that will be coming out, and the amazing Sarah Stoltman did some beautiful long arm quilting for me, and so did Sue Volbrecht from Quilting Memories, and then my mom made a quilt for the book, and some wonderful quilters from C&D Publishing also put some together for us. But I wrote a new short story that will appear in that pattern book as well. So I have been really busy lately. But
somebody asked, will you be designing quilt fabric?
I did used to design quilt fabric with Red Rooster Fabrics, and unfortunately, they are no longer in business. So I am not designing quilt fabric anymore. That makes me a little sad because that was so much fun. I really enjoyed it. And then it was always so nice to get all that free sample fabric. That was a really nice too. But unfortunately, no, they're not in business anymore. So that won't be happening. It'll probably just be books and novels and pattern books from now on. But although who knows? Who knows what might come up? You never know.
It's true. That's true. It'll be exciting to see. So there's an exclusive short story in the book, which is a lot of good fun.
Yes, yes, and it will explain the origins of one of the quilts and the pattern there, and it will also lead into a future novel. But that's all I'm going to say because I haven't written that novel yet.
Okay. So so there are more exciting Elm Creek adventures coming down the
There will be. But my next novel will be coming out in 2027, and that is a standalone historical novel.
I
It's
just
called,
answered the question a couple people asked. So
oh, good. Wait, what was the question they asked? What was my
they
next
wanted
book?
to know if you had any plans for another historical novel.
I do. I have a whole list of historical novels that I hope that I get to write someday. Unfortunately, sometimes another author gets to that item on my list before I do, but that's okay because then I can enjoy it as a reader, instead of writing it myself, which is kind of nice in its own way. But my next book will be set in the UK in 1881 and 1882, and it is called The Rational Dress Society. And this is a book about dress reform in Britain. And it also has to deal with suffrage movement. And my husband says that this is his favorite book of all the ones that I've written. And I don't know if it's his favorite book of all time or just of my books. Probably just of my books, but that's good. That's still very high praise. So this book centers around a fictional young woman named Josephine Mayberry. And she wants to be a solicitor, but women are not allowed to be solicitors in England at that time. So she's trying to figure out a way that she can get to pursue this dream. And in the meantime, her aunt wants to get her married off properly. And Joe's a little ambivalent about that because she's concerned that marriage will prevent her from pursuing her other goals. So, frustrated with Joe's lack of cooperation on the marriage market, her aunt sends Joe off to live with a distant relation who is based upon a real life woman. Of course, I have fictionalized her life, but the historical woman is Frances Wallace Pomeroy, Lady Harberton. So she is a vicomtesse, and she was in real life too, very much involved in the suffrage movement and in dress reform and in all kinds of important causes. And she takes Joe under her wing and wants Joe to join her in fighting for women to get the right to vote and fighting for women to be able to free themselves from the oppressive clothing that, the super tight corsets that made it impossible to breathe, and the layers and layers of heavy cloth, the long skirts, just that really were meant to keep women kind of immobile and just there for, for observation, not for movement, not for motion, not even for deep breathing. Lady Harberton was also an avid bicyclist. Bicycles were becoming all the rage, and a lot of people weren't that happy about women being able to ride bicycles because all of a sudden they could explore on their own power, they could travel unescorted, and they had this new freedom, and they were learning how they could move, and they learned to enjoy exercise and the thrill of speed and all of this other thing. But in order to be able to really ride your bicycle well, you need to be able to dress appropriately for that sport. So that's where the big corsets or the tight corsets and the layers and layers of heavy clothing just weren't working. So Lady Harberton and others like her wanted women to be able to wear divided skirts or knickerbockers, always dressed very appropriately. These were not, Lady Harberton, she was, very modest and tasteful, and everything still had to be beautiful. She did not want women to wear trousers. Heavens, no. These were still very feminine and beautiful garments. But they let women exercise and breathe and explore and not have to hobble along in a skirt that was super, super tight, which was the style previous, just right before the novel begins. And it was supposed to follow the natural form of the human body, but it was a human female body that was absolutely motionless. So Jo gets involved in these important causes, but there's also a secret family scandal that Jo is trying to keep secret. And she also is meeting several gentlemen, some of them very nice, some of them that just drive her absolutely crazy. So Jo is juggling all of these different things as she's really trying to make her way in life and learn about herself and pursue her goals. So that's called the Rational Dress Society, and it's coming out in 2027. And I don't know the exact month or date yet, but it'll be coming out. The manuscript's finished. It's done with the revisions. It's off at the publisher. And as soon as I have a cover to show you, I will, but that's probably still a few months away. So that will be coming out in 2027. And I hope you look for it. Swan Fox Books will be able to get a copy to you, I'm
definitely. Sure. So did you get to travel to England, or did you do all your research locally, like in Wisconsin?
Well, I have been to England. So a lot of the story is set in Windsor, and I did spend some time in Windsor and then in London as well. I didn't travel for this specific trip, or for this specific book, but I have traveled to the places that I wrote about. So, but then, I had to do more research into what it looked like then and what was available then, not not what was in the 21st century. Although, of course, part of the beauty of London and Windsor is that so much that was existing then still exists today. But I did have to do a lot of historical research, both online and through the Wisconsin Historical Society archives and the UW Memorial Library. That was also wonderful. And I also read, one of the fun things about writing Rational Dress Society was reading some of the manuals that women with more would write about how they learned to ride a bicycle. Or there's one book with, I love the title, Lady Cycling, what to wear and how to ride. Lady cycling. It's different from gentleman cycling, apparently. But, just hearing what advice one avid bicyclist would give to another woman to encourage her to get out there and ride her bike. That was really a lot of fun. And then reading newspapers through the British newspaper archives online to see what Lady Harberton was saying she made a number of speeches advocating for suffrage and advocating for rational dress and other causes that were important to her. So getting to read speeches that she delivered in public or articles that she wrote for magazines. She would like to write a lot of very sternly worded but very witty letters to the editor of all the newspapers. So getting to read what she wrote in her own words was really a lot of fun, and it really enhanced it just made the writing process so much of an adventure and so inspiring for me.
That's exciting. I can't wait to see it. Good. And read it when it comes out. There is a question in the chat that goes back to quilting. Karen wanted to know, have you ever thought about teaching on a quilting cruise? I didn't know there were quilting cruises.
Well, I have been on a quilting cruise. I did a cruise for a cure, or was it quilt for a cure? Well, I went on a special quilt cruise to Alaska This would have been in 2004. Yes, because it happened to be very close to my husband and my 10th anniversary. So we went along together to do the cruise and to help raise money for breast cancer research, and also celebrate our anniversary. My mom came and stayed with our boys, who were quite young at that time, 4 and 2. So it was our first trip away from them, and it was hard, but it was also so wonderful. So I have done that, but I am not a quilt teacher myself. I have taught writing at the university level, but I taught at Penn State University Park campus, and I taught at Edgewood College here in Madison, but I have never taught quilting. So I think if you're going to go on a cruise, you would want someone who actually is a qualified quilt instructor, and not me just, oh, well, you could try that. Oh, well, you could try that instead. So, yeah, you wouldn't want me teaching you. I mean, I taught my mom, but that's more of a one-on-one thing with a very, very tolerant student, my mom. So, I think you'd probably want a more qualified quilt teacher for that. But I went and I did I talked about the novels, I talked about the series, and hung out with the other cruisers, and then, had a lot of fun doing day trips and stuff like that. So I have done a quilt cruise, but it was more of I was like the book author person, not the quilting teacher.
The special author guest.
I was the special author guest, yeah. And it was a lot of fun. It really was a lot of fun.
So Anna has a question. They ask, do you find that sometimes you need to go looking for inspiration, or do you typically have novel ideas jump out at you unexpectedly?
I think it's a little bit of both. It depends on the book. Sometimes an idea has just come to me. Often one book will inspire the next book, just like Patchwork Players came from the idea that I had in the World's Fair quilt. Like, I was not planning the Patchwork Players when I had Julia call Sylvia and say, hey, here's something that will solve both of our problems. A special quilt camp week for which I insist paying top dollar, and I will not take no for an answer. After that, I started to think that, when the book was in the production process and I'd send it to my editor, I thought that would probably be a really fun week of quilt camp. Boy, I would really like to see that. And then when my editor finished reading the World's Fair quilt and got back to me with it, she said, I would love to see that week of quilt camp. Can you imagine? That would be so much fun to see all of this band of players come to Elm Creek Manor and have quilt camp together. And I said, I had the same thought. So that's how we decided, okay, well, that's what the next book's going to be. We're going to write about that. So that was pretty funny. And the title came from that too. When my editor said, oh, this merry band of players descending on Elm Creek Manor. So that's where the title came from too. I thought, oh, I got
it's nice alliteration. I like it.
Yeah, I like that too. Yeah. Yeah. So that's how that, and other times, I'll a bit of historic, while I'm researching one historical topic, I'll come across a particular historical figure or a group of people or an important historical event that I will say, oh, wow, this is so interesting. I would love to know more about her. I would love to know more about what their experiences were like. And then I'll kind of file that away. I'll put it on that list I mentioned earlier. And then, because, as tempting as it would be to drop what I'm working on and go and research that new topic, I have to stay on schedule. I have to stay on the course. So I'll file that away. And then later, when I finish the current project, I'll go back to that list, and I'll often just look through and say, oh yeah, that, you know what? I still really love that idea. Sometimes I'll look at my list and say, what was I thinking? We'll not go that one yet. But very often I'll think, you know what? This would be a great time to write this book. And Rational Dress Society was actually on that list for a number of years. And while I was doing other things, and then I came back to it um, just because it seemed like, there was a lot in the news about, women's rights and women's right to decide what they wear, and things that were curtailing women's freedom. And I thought, this sounds like it would be very timely now that we're seeing new restrictions around the world on what women are allowed to wear, and are they allowed to go out in public and things like that. And I just thought that a book that really that kind of talked about that, letting women have access to movement and transportation, and not being oppressed by their clothing, but rather liberated by it. I thought that would really resonate with modern audiences. So that's how I came to pick Rational Dress Society. But ideas come to me in lots of different ways.
So it sounds like you're one of those authors, you like to work on one project, get it finished, and move on to the next.
Well, I like to work on one rough draft at a time. There are always multiple books going on at the same time, but they're in different stages of the process. So, for example, I just finished revising the Rational Dress Society, and it is off with my publisher right now, and it's going to go into production, and they'll do the copy editing and the proofreading and write all the marketing stuff and design the cover and all of that important stuff that I'm mostly, I just look it over when they're done with all the important work that they do. And I am going around or coming to you virtually talking about the Patchwork Players. And in the meantime, I need to start planning and start writing the book that will come out in 2028. So there are always multiple projects going on at the same time. And this year too, I also have the pattern book coming out. So I have to gear up for the publicity for that. But while I can juggle different projects at the same time, when they are in these very different parts of the process, I would not want to divide my attention between two different first drafts of a novel at the same time. Because when I am writing a first draft, I really want to be immersed in that world and focused on those characters and what they're doing at that moment. And I really get caught up in their lives and in what they're doing. And if I had to tear myself out of that and immerse myself in another world, it would be very jarring. And I don't think I could make the smooth transition. So when it comes to a first draft, I just want to do one at a time. But not every author works that way.
No.
Whatever works for you and can help you get your book written. There's no one correct way to write a novel. Whatever process you use to write your book is the right process.
Anna actually has another question. They ask, speaking of schedules, do you have a routine that works for your writing to help prevent burnout?
Well, I think that, I really love writing. So that really helps a lot. Some of the other aspects of, being a published author are more grueling and more exhausting for me. And those tend to burn me out, but not the writing itself. And I just try to maintain a healthy work-life balance as much as I can. I have a lot of support from my family who've always encouraged me to do this work that I love. And, and when I hear from readers that they really are glad that I wrote a particular book, then that makes me feel that, yeah, whatever struggle or difficulty or, psychological pain I went through to write a book, it's worth it if it really meant something to someone else. So, but I often find that quilting helps relax me. Like if I'm struggling with something, a particular description, or can't quite figure out what to do next with the plot, sitting there at the computer and trying to force it to work just leads to more frustration. So I find that if I set that aside and then I go do something else where my thoughts can flow more freely, sometimes that's going for a walk or going for a run or working on a quilt or just designing a quilt, then I find that my thoughts become unsnarled, they untangle, And then an idea will often just pop right up to the surface, like a bottle that had been submerged and somebody let go of it and up it comes.
I like that.
So really switching between, you know, sedentary activity of sitting at a desk and physical activity like taking a walk outside, or one creative activity of writing and a different creative activity of quilting. I found that that helps keep things loose and flowing, and it helps me keep going.
Beth asks, will there be additional books in the Elm Creek series?
Yes. I don't want to say too much because I haven't even started writing it yet. But the book after The Rational Dress Society is going to be another Elm Creek Quilts novel. It's in my contract, so that's, you know, that's, I promise you that's what it'll be. And that will be coming out sometime in 2028, assuming that I finish it on time. I don't see any reason why I wouldn't, but you never know.
No.
If you've been following me on social media, you know that 2025 was quite a year for me, and even more so for my husband. So you never know what life is going to throw at you. But you know, assuming everything stays on course, there will be another Elm Creek Quilts novel out in 2028, and I hope that's good news.
Yes, there's lots of hearts. Beth is excited.
But I haven't exactly narrowed down what I want to do yet. So I'm not going to give you a working title or possibilities because I might change my mind and I don't want you to be disappointed. I wanted that other book you talked about with Terry.
We don't want to.
I couldn't do it. I tried.
So, one of the questions, if people have questions, we have time for a few more questions on from the audience. So if you want to drop those in, if you have questions, please do that. I've got one more question for Jennifer.
Sure.
Because I'm always looking for new authors and new books and new ways to discover. So I love asking authors to share an author or a book that you think everyone should read. Maybe it's a book that's coming out this year or one that you've read in the last year or so.
I can tell you there's a book. Stephanie Dre has a new book out.
Ooh, I've read her
Founding Mothers, I think it's called, I should know this. I think it's called Founding Mothers. Obviously, I haven't bought it yet. I need to buy it. I need to order it from you, Terry. And I understand that you ship nationwide.
You do.
So I need to get this. I haven't got, because see, usually when I go on my book tour and I'm in a bookstore, I buy a book or two while I'm there. But the tornadoes have kept me from tornadoes and baseball-sized hail. So I'm really, really looking forward to that because I love all of her books. Just wonderful. I recently finished reading I guess it's a historical novel. It's set in like 2021 and 2014. It's not in it's coming out soon. But I read it in the advanced readers copy, advanced readers edition, to give it a quote.
Yeah.
And it's called City of Widows. And it is absolutely wonderful. It is set in Afghanistan in 2014 and in 2021. And it focuses on this group of women and what they had to deal with during those incredibly tumultuous years. And it is powerful. It is challenging. It is very enlightening because I think a lot of us here in the US don't always have a good understanding of what it was like for women over there. We have a general sense, but this really, one of the great things about fiction is it puts you into the perspective of, it doesn't just give you facts about what happened. It helps you experience that through the eyes of a character. And so I really recommend that. City of Widows. It was fantastic. I also always recommend Mary Doria Russell. I love her historical fiction. Sarah Winman has a book out. This is going back a few years, Still Life. I love it. It's historical post World War II fiction about a veteran who ends up returning to Italy, where he served after the war, and makes a expat life for himself there. Beautifully written. Boy,
There aren't a ton of books that take place in that time period. I'm always on the lookout for those.
Yeah, I mean, I like to read. I love historical fiction. I also read a lot of contemporary fiction too. But you know, I'm looking at I don't have my glasses on, so I'm squinting at my bookshelf over here. I should turn the computer so you could see it. I have right now behind, you see my desk, and I have a desk in front of me. This is we call it used to be my office, but my youngest son likes calling it the library. So we call it the library now. There's a window in front of me. And then to my left are big bookcases with all of my fiction and poetry, and then bio and autobiography. And then over here, I have two big bookcases filled with nonfiction and quilting pattern books and quilt history books, and then like all of the different translations of my books. I have like one author copy of most of them. There's some I don't have, but so unfortunately I can't, you know, I'm squinting. Oh, I can see City of Widows. It's right there. But I love Lessons in Chemistry. I thought that was wonderful. I love that. Did you say she's coming to yours?
No, she has another book coming out.
Yes, she has another book coming out. I am going to grab it. I don't care what it's about. I'm gonna read that book because
I think it's about a bookstore.
Oh,
or publishing industry is something. It's connected to something in the publishing world. I remember seeing
it could be about refurbishing hardwood floors, and it would still be a brilliant book. So I'm gonna buy it. Whatever it's about, I'm already gonna buy my copy. Yeah, and then I like classics too. I love Jane Austen. Might have heard me say that before, but you know, I'm always eager for a new read, and always looking for new things to read. That's one of the wonderful things about independent bookstores and libraries, is that you can go in and find the book you're looking for, but you can also find the book that you didn't know you were looking for, because independent booksellers and librarians know how to connect readers with the book they need more than any algorithm ever could hope to do. I mean, there's just something about the human connection that we need. And, you know, that's just something. I mean, if the Library Appreciation Week, and we're coming up on Independent Bookstore Day, boy, it's very timely to remember that, you know, they are such an important part of, if you love to read, those are two groups that make it possible for authors like me to get the books you love into your hands. So it would not work without them. So do support them. Do support them, please.
Jessica has a question, because I know that you've done this. I know you've gone to this event before. They want to know, will you be at the Great Wisconsin Quilt Show this fall?
I hope so. I sent in my application. I have not heard yet if I've been selected, but I really hope I will be. I love the Great Wisconsin Quilt Show. It is so much fun every year, and I really do hope to be there. And as soon as I have information about it, I will post it on my website. And but I am keeping those days free. So I sent in my application. Fingers crossed, I'll be chosen. I'll be one of the lucky people chosen. And then I will be there in September.
Sounds amazing. Well, I don't know if you can hear it, but the rain is here in Iowa. So it's not too far away from you up there in Madison.
You know, I just see it's here. It is windy and ominous skies out the window here. Well, hey, but you know what? The power didn't go out.
Yeah.
So we were able to have this. We didn't lose our power.
Yes, we still have power, but we're coming at the top of the hour. So if there are any more questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat. I'll have to send you a link, and I'll have to post it on YouTube all over the place too. There is an author in Minnesota. There's an author in Minnesota. He writes middle grade and YA, and he also has did a motivational novel. And he had a video. He does videos I think it's almost every day he has a video, and he's usually sharing stories about his life as a teacher and his encounters with students. And one of his favorite stories is about taking a student into the school library to find a book. And he didn't as a teacher, had run out of ideas for the student, and they talked to the librarian, and the librarian found a book, the perfect book for the child.
Oh,
And the
wonderful.
librarian said that she loved a good lost and found. So you don't know what you're looking for. You don't, and then
Yeah.
and you just know. And so every time I watch the video, I get a little choked up. So.
Yes, I am too, and I haven't even seen the video yet. Yeah, but I remember being that child and wanting, being a child like that, and going into the library and not knowing, how am I going to find? There's so much. Where do I start? And having a children's librarian just steer me in the right direction, and really just opening up that whole wonderful world to me. And we got to keep both of those institutions thriving. We need them now more than ever. Libraries and independent bookstores.
So I think Millie has our last question of the night, and they ask, how do you keep up the pace of one or more books per year?
I do not know. It's funny. I was talking to my agent just today, and right now I do have, 2 books for 2026, 1 book for 2027, 1 book for 2028. And after that, I think I might start cutting back to just 1 book every 2 years. Mm-hmm. Please don't hate me, but I am not when I first started publishing, my first book came out in 1999, and I cannot keep up the pace that young woman set. I can't do it anymore. So I will be, I think I say this, and then I might say, oh no, I can do it, and I'll sign it. But right now the plan is, to start spreading them out a little bit more so that I can keep going, because I hope you still want to keep reading them.
Oh, definitely.
I'll need to, but I think that is going to be the plan. So I guess the answer to your question is, how do I do it? Not very well. So, for the sake of, my mental health, I need to slow it down a bit. It's time.
Anna says it's fine if you change your schedule up.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You get me, Anna. You get me. Thank you.
So I want to say thank you to Jennifer for pivoting and being so flexible for tonight. You're welcome back in Marion anytime.
Thank you.
And so when we get closer to knowing when the 2027 book comes out, we'll get you on the calendar for that. Yeah. And hopefully everybody that joined us will be able to see you somewhere in person. Jennifer is great with social media. Her website is fantastic. She keeps it so up to date. So I encourage you to follow her on social media. Check out her website. Do you have a newsletter?
I do. You can sign up for it on my website. I try not to bury you in emails. So I mostly, just let you know when I have something important to tell you about. But yeah, you can sign up for it. And it is just, if you give me your address on my website, I do not give it to anybody else. I don't even know how to give it to somebody else. So it's just coming from me. So, yeah.
Chris says, love your books. Thanks for sharing your books and experience.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thanks for tuning in, and thanks for your flexibility. I know it would have been nice if I could have been there with you today, but we have to make sure we all survive to be able to keep reading and writing.
Exactly. So I just want to remind everybody that we are working with Jennifer to get signed copies of her books. I'm going to show this little ticker thing at the bottom that
that's great.
So we have copies of The Quilter's Apprentice, The World's Fair Quilt, both in paperback. And then we have hardcover copies of The Patchwork Players. I also have large print copies.
Fantastic.
Copies of The Patchwork Players. So if you go to the website that's scrolling at the bottom, which is swampboxbookstore.com/Elm Creek, you can purchase one of the books. If you purchase before April 28th, we'll make sure your copy gets signed by Jennifer. It may take a little bit longer than normal, just to alert anybody, because what we're doing is we're packaging up everybody's orders into a box. We're shipping them to Madison. Jennifer's going to sign them and then ship them
at this very desk. At this very desk, I'm going to sign your books,
and then if you
ship them back to Terry.
Yep.
And then she will get them to you.
Yep. So you can pick them up in the store. And if you're tuning in from somewhere else in the world or in the country, we do ship. So you can put an order in and we will ship it to you. Like I said, just be patient because we've got this back and forth transit we've got to handle here. So if we had timed it right, if the event had been last week and been canceled, I could have just brought the box with me to Madison.
The horse show. Yes, you were here for the horse show.
Yes. So thank
Oh,
you
well.
so much. Yeah, next year maybe we'll do that.
We'll figure it out. Yeah, we'll figure it out. We figured this out.
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you everybody for tuning in.
Thank you.
And apologize for the glitches on YouTube. I'm glad we got the viewers over there all situated. And the replay will be up until the internet doesn't exist anymore. So feel free to share it with everybody that you know. And once again, thank you, Jennifer, for joining us tonight.
My pleasure. Thank you, Terry. I really appreciate it.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night. Stay safe out there.